Mr. Justice Prashant Kumar Mishra, Chief Justice, High Court of Andhra Pradesh and Patron-in-Chief, Andhra Pradesh. All officials who are associated with legal aid work at the national and the state level, all judicial officers who are present here, all police officials who are present here, all professors, teachers of Andhra University, persons from media, dignitaries, invitees, ladies and gentlemen. We have heard very eminent speakers about the menace of plastic. Doesn't need any further elaboration or expansion of the topic. As a child, I used to see my mother get the milk delivered to our place in glass bottles. These were replaceable glass bottles. The milk would be poured in the containers in the house. The bottles would be cleaned. Next day morning, the bottles would be returned, and in their place, you would get fresh milk bottles. That was the simplest way of getting milk delivered to your place, which over a period of time, my next generation now sees milk being delivered in plastic bags or containers. This is the, call it advancement in life, call it degradation in our public life. Way back in 1963, two scientists, that's one Ziegler and Natta, they received Nobel Prize for invention of plastic, which could be used for normal day-to-day functions. Polymers were invented after Second World War, and since then they have become part of our regular day-to-day life. I still recollect medical professionals. They used to have syringes which were made of glass, which after every use, the syringes, needles would be boiled to sterilize in a container. All the medical professionals used to do that. Today, everything is getting replaced by what is called single-use syringes, which just need to be thrown away. That's the level, that's the place, call it place of pride or call it place of negative kind of impact on our life that the plastic has had. About 40% of plastic which is used in our daily life is single-use plastic. Just as I told you, syringes. There are plastic containers, bags, in whichever form we use. This is single-use plastic. When it comes to management on plastic issues or the impact of plastic, as one of my previous speakers told you about, 3 R's. One is reuse, recycle, and reduce. I would put one more R, and that's the need of the R. The first is reduce. Try to reduce your consumption to the extent possible when it comes to single-use plastic material, whether it may be carry bags, whether it be anything, plates, spoons, whatever. Reduce your consumption. That is number one. Number two, reuse the material. Keep using it as if it's regular steel utensil, all those plastic, to the extent possible, of course. So the second R would be reuse. The third, which as a society, which we must impose on or insist on, recycle of the plastic material. That is, whatever you are producing today, let it be recycled in one form or the other as another plastic item. But the load on the environment, the load on Mother Earth gets reduced. And if nothing of this is possible, then refuse the use of plastic. As a society, we must refuse the use of plastic. Well, easier said than done. How does one do that? We need to invent modalities, we need to invent regimes, we need to invent ideas. As a society, we have seen one or two campaigns, and that's the impact of the societal kind of drive initiative, which as a society we are capable of doing that. Polio eradication. That's just about polio eradication happened just because of educating people, just because of the drive which was taken by the governmental machinery and supported well by the entire society. Today we have almost 0% of patients who are affected by polio. Second campaign which the society undertook was no smoking campaign. In my young days, I used to see smokers everywhere around. Today in public places, we have prohibited smoking. There is a large awareness which is growing in the society that smoking is injurious to health. Whether it is by campaigns such as advertisement, public awareness, or whatever modality, we have now come to accept that smoking is not something conducive to good health. Now, a word of distinction. When it comes to campaign like polio eradication, nobody would say that there is an alternative to that. I would like to have polio. So the society is always on one side saying that let polio be eradicated. There's nobody apparently who would say that smoking is good for my health. There may be addicts, there may be compulsions of addiction, but the accepted norm is that smoking is injurious. So temperamentally, everybody is in support of such campaign. But this may not be so when it comes to plastic. As I told you, there are host of people who say plastic is essential to the day-to-day life. As I told you about syringes which are made of plastic, the entire medical community would say that look here, it is so convenient, so easy, that please spare us, allow us the use of plastic. When it comes to tablets, which need to have larger shelf life, the pharmaceutical companies would say that please allow us to wrap their tablets or capsules in plastic, because that will give hazard-free, hassle-free movements, transportation, easier, simpler way. And that's where the fissures in the society are bound to be there, because some sections of the society are going to say that allow us the use of plastic, while the others would say that please don't permit such use. And that's where the campaign needs to have a sharper kind of approach, a clear vision, and a very beautiful ideas to sail through. As a child, I heard my grandparents tell me stories about Dashavatar, Matsya, Kurma, Varaha, Narasimha, Vamana, etc. And the part of the country that I come from, Varaha avatar was known to be avatar taken by the Almighty to see that the earth is taken out of filth and dirt. I never thought that perhaps, that stage would come. But travel to any countryside and you will see the entire road, entire area littered by plastic waste. Statistics actually show that out of 100% of plastic which is generated, about 12% plastic is recycled, 9% plastic waste is incinerated, that is destroyed, and 79% continues to be the load on the earth. And that's the load that we carry. In environmental science, there are three principles which are well-known principles. One, polluter pays. That whoever pollutes the environment, whoever pollutes the earth, must pay for the remedial measures. Number two, intergenerational equity. That is, if I have received this Mother Earth in, say, shape which is very conducive to environment, then it is my obligation, it is my duty, it is my responsibility that I hand over the earth to my next generation in the same fashion, in the same capacity, in the same manner. That is intergenerational equity. Whatever my forefathers gave me, I must give to my succeeding generations in the same fashion. If my forefathers gave me the earth without plastic waste, then I don't have the responsibility or even the right to deviate from that and give that earth with such tremendous load of plastic, which is totally non-biodegradable, and ruin the chances and the future of my next generation. The third principle, which is what one of the earlier speakers actually referred to, fellow citizen council. That to the extent possible, given the circumstances, in environmental law, we must err on the safer side. That given the options, we can't be adventuristic, we will rather be conservative and err on the side which is the safer side. One classic example, that was that Kudremukh iron ore company, a throbbing iron ore company coming from Karnataka, southern part of Karnataka, which was a throbbing profit-making company in public sector, which was in iron ore mining. Under the orders of the Supreme Court was directed to be closed. Why? Because the biodiversity in the area was getting affected. What the Supreme Court thought is that yes, iron ore can wait in the bowels of the earth. If not extracted today, maybe after 20 years, 50 years, you are still able to extract that the ferrous material. But if the biodiversity of the area gets affected today, then the entire gene pool coming from that area will get affected so adversely that perhaps it will be lost for eternity. And therefore, let that Kudremukh iron ore stop for a while. That's the approach to be adopted when it comes to environmental law, that when you are in doubt, err on the safer side. Similar approaches need to be adopted when it comes to plastic. We need to have an approach which is divide or segregate functions, essential functions like medical, pharmaceutical, whatever we call. Allow use of plastic only in those areas. Otherwise, ban it completely when it comes to single-use plastic. The speakers who represented the municipal corporation, the police department, and the administration were so vociferous, and it's such a welcome idea that the administration is taking such giant strides to see that the plastic gets completely curtailed. Very good. We have new rules which are supposed to come into effect from 1st of July, that single-use plastic would be banned, which is supposed to come into effect from 1st of July 2022. The rules were promulgated in October. Sufficient time was given to the manufacturers. Why? Because there are beautiful judgments from National Green Tribunal, which has actually put the responsibility on what is called Extended Producer Responsibility, EPR. That is, put the responsibility on the manufacturer to say that the product that I am manufacturing is capable of getting degraded, biodegraded, or it is not going to be a menace in case it is not recycled. So that kind of certification, that kind of responsibility, that kind of onus which gets cast on the shoulders of the producer will certainly reduce the burden. One can understand in core areas like, as I said, medical, pharmaceutical. I just gave two examples. That doesn't mean that these are restricted areas. There could be other areas. One hasn't given a thought to that. But the idea which emerges is, wherever possible, wherever there is an alternative, wherever there could be paper bags, jute bags, or steel plates, or any other plates, discourage the use of plastic. And discourage is to such an extent that the entire society must stand uniformly together, and we must take that stride and say that we refuse to have these kind of plastics being swamped in the society. Wherever plastic is essential, wherever plastic there is no option, then one can say reuse, recycle, or reduce. But to the extent possible, always refuse the use of plastic. Now, where does Nalsa come in? Nalsa is interested with the work which, among others, is environmental protection as well. Though this is not strictly what we call legal aid, but making people aware of the environment, of the adverse impact of certain issues on environment, is certainly part of legal education, educating people so that their lives become smoother, easier, simpler. So we will certainly take up these causes. That's so far as issues 1 and 2 are concerned, which are for today's discussion. I'll briefly touch upon last issue, which is the workers in the unorganized sector. There are a large number of unorganized sectors where great amount of work is required to be done to uplift the plight of these workers. I won't touch upon those issues, but I'll just indicate one issue. We have seen large number of these construction workers in activities which are infrastructure and construction activities. Houses are built, apartments are constructed, buildings are put up. There's contingent of workers who come there at the site. They stay there for about a year or two. After the project is completed, we don't even know the identity of those persons. They move on, go to another project. There is a legislation which is enacted by the central authorities which imposes cess on construction activities. Certain amount of cess or tax is imposed so that the plight of these workers who are in this unorganized sector, which is essentially construction work, they can be provided some succor. And I may tell you, because I had the occasion to deal with litigation which came up before me, huge amount of money, hundreds of crores are lying in deposit by way of cess with the respective administrative bodies. But because these construction workers have moved from one project to the other and their identities are not known, there's a huge question mark on the column of the beneficiaries. Who are the beneficiaries? So, ladies and gentlemen, we are back to square one. Number one, there are no measures for upliftment of the cause of such workers. That's area number one. Area number two, there are measures, there are collections, large amounts of monies are collected, but they are not disbursed. That's area number two. We will, to start with, will concentrate on area number two first. At least wherever the executive has been aware of the problem and has taken measures, has gone 2 steps ahead and enacted statutory regime, let that statutory regime be taken to its logical conclusion. And whatever has been collected under that banner, under that regime, must reach the concerned beneficiaries. This is nothing but, again, one wing of Nalsa's activity, that whoever are the intended beneficiaries, we always believe in Nalsa that beneficiary first. So whoever is the beneficiary, he must get whatever is legal due. These are 2 activities that I wanted to flag before you. But above all, coming back to square one, as I said, it is only the force of citizenry, it is only the force of population, it is only the will of the entire nation which will determine what shall be the profile when we say no to plastics. We must say emphatically no to plastics. Thank you.
And there are jute bags here, not plastic bags.
Thank you.
Come, Commissioner.